If writer Luka Razikashvili was born in the years of the independence of Georgia, perhaps he might have chosen as his pen name Vaja Georgian, rather than Vaja Pshavela, and together with his work, he might have also introduced to the world the state, even the name of which was lost in the 19th century. The country, once free and independent, was mentioned only as a province within the Russian Empire. A century and a half has passed since the birth of Vaja Pshavela, and over this period, the reader several times had an opportunity to rediscover him as a writer. It is noteworthy that not a single literary generation could pass by Vaja Pshavela's work indifferently. Not a single literary trend could resist the temptation to put his worldview within its own ideological thinking. But in the course of time, it is obvious that he is still free and is moving in his own literary orbit. To link the Georgian national literature to the world literature, Vaja Pshavela constructed the longest bridge from the east to the west, from classical literature to the modernist worldview, from patriotic feeling to cosmopolitanism. And although his work unites up to 40 epics, hundreds of poems, numerous stories and publicistic articles, to introduce his literary identity, he will rely on his two-page essay, Cosmopolitanism and Patriotism. In this work, the author formulates the Georgian theory of the world citizenship, according to which every nation seeks freedom and the means to rule itself independently. The separate development of nations is the condition for the development of all humanity. In the opinion of Vaja Pshavela, genuine patriotism doesn't contradict cosmopolitanism. Every true patriot is a cosmopolitan, just like every clever cosmopolitan is a patriot. A person who serves his nation wisely and seeks to uplift his homeland both intellectually and morally, thereby educates the best members of humanity, facilitates the development and well-being of all mankind. And all this is based on the consciousness that people are equal regardless of their nationality, language, religion, class, or cultural affiliation. Exactly the unacceptability of this belief by others make one of Vaja Pshavela's characters, Aluda Ketelauri, go against the majority. We should say that we are men. Thus, gradually, in Vaja Pshavela's lyric poetry, there appears first a faint outline, then more conspicuous contours of a creative, thinking person, having the freedom of choice, who can boldly repeat, "Heed the wisdom of your people, dedicate yourself to the well-being, don't hate other nations, and don't envy their happiness. Don't prevent other nations from achieving their goals. Work towards the day when no one will subjugate your nation and work for its progress until it equals the leading nations of the world." This is the way of moral ascension of humanity, and his characters also follow this path. The degree of their thinking is transformed from the ancient totemic faith to the supreme Christian ideals. They rise from the folk consciousness to the highest stage of individual contemplation. Gradually, their moral obligation increases and the boundaries of their activity are expanded. From the viewpoint of one's own homeland, it unfolds in the world radius. Every patriot is honor-bound to serve his country with all his strength. His job is to think of the welfare of his fellow citizens. To the extent that his ideas are grounded in reality, his work will bear fruit on its native soil and will benefit all of humanity. Vaja Pshavela's characters have an insatiable need for self-realization. This natural process occurs in them in two stages. In the early years of their life, they are trying to separate themselves from the society, to become aware of their differences and to realize their identity. And in the second half of their life, they are ready to share their experience with others and get involved in common affairs. Let my country see for itself who is faithful, who is not. According to Vaja Pshavela, patriotism is more a matter of feeling than of intellect, although men of reason have always cherished their homeland. Cosmopolitanism is a matter merely of the brain. It bears no relation to the feelings that originate in the heart. Yet it is the core of the solution to the tragedy that haunts humanity today. The universal issue related to the feelings and the brain is decided by his characters from the very beginning. Don't let one oppress the other. Heart and mind should be like brothers. It is noteworthy that Vaja Pshavela, in his heroic poetry and epic poems, as well as in his entire work, along with pursuing other literary objectives, strives to create an ideal literary character. The general portrait of character assumes shape gradually, who, according to some critics, bear resemblance to Homer's heroes. However, this doesn't at all contradict the viewpoint which traces the genesis of Vaja Pshavela's characters to ancient Georgian mythology, the myth of Amiran, and classical Georgian literature. The centuries-old Georgian literature has one remarkable tradition. The characters of mythology, folklore, and even the epic characters of Rustaveli's poem follow the literary process, change their name, appearance, worldview, genre, but their high moral nature, morality, love for others, and the ability of self-sacrifice remain unchanged. That is why we're not surprised to meet the characters of Rustaveli's epic poem, first in lyrical characters of Nicholas Baratashvili, and then to get acquainted with them once again in Vaja Pshavela's epic poems. Cross-legged, sitting by the heart was Jo'ola. Here is a literary image corresponding to Rodin's thinker. Being only yesterday, the romantic character of Nicholas Baratashvili, tormented by inner contradictions and meditating on the vanity of life, leaning on the elbow, who today is contemplating the experience of a new day. This thinker, upon hearing the story of mourning over the enemy, his brother's killer, by his wife, must offer an unprecedented example of humanism. You wept, you did a gracious thing. In Vaja Pshavela's work, along with the heroic and tragic principle, one of the pillars is humanism, on the basis of which the writer accomplished perfectly the highly difficult task of creation of national epic poem. And exactly this, in our view, is one of the major contributions of Vaja Pshavela to the history not only of Georgian but also of world literature.